just think positive.
Yeah.
Like yesterday I was really having a tough day and my mom's like, well, don't let your thoughts get to you. And I'm like, I don't even think I have any negative thoughts today. I don't know
Yeah.
why I feel this way. Like that
Yeah.
was not, it's like people don't understand, or it feels like people don't understand that it's not always
Yeah.
that I can kind of recognize and counter a thought to help.
Yeah.
It's just,
Yeah.
it's happening and I can't describe it sometimes.
You, I feel like, are honoring so many people with, like, we just got started in this conversation, and I feel like you just provided space for so many people who feel so unseen and so unheard. Where when we tell someone to calm down, just think positive, distract yourself, is this rational? Is this not rational? In those moments, that could be very invalidating because the body is talking and the body doesn't really care. Usually is concerned about our safety, not our well-being.
Welcome to Normalize the Conversation by Inspiring My Generation. I'm your host, Francesca Regeter. Today, I'm joined by holistic anxiety expert, Dr. Nicole Cain, a trauma-informed psychologist and author of Panic Proof, who knows panic firsthand because she lived it. In this episode, we talk about anxiety in a way that actually feels relieving. We explore what your body might be communicating, how emotional patterns show up physically, and why healing doesn't have to feel rigid or clinical. This conversation is about curiosity, compassion, and self-trust. So take a breath, settle in, and join us in this conversation, because understanding yourself shouldn't feel like another thing you're doing wrong. Thank you so much for joining me today. I am super excited for this conversation, but before we begin, I want to check in. How are you really?
I am so focused on gratitude right now, actually,
Oh,
because I haven't told very many people this, but I just had sinus surgery. And for the first time in my entire life, I'm able to breathe through my nose, which is like so disruptive and like shockingly incredible. And so like I'm like right now you're encountering me and I'm just like mind blown every single breath that I take. So that's how I'm doing. How about you?
that's amazing. So before that, you weren't really able to breathe through your nose very well?
Never. When I kissed my first boy when I was a teenager and I got my first kiss, you're supposed to, at least they talk about how you're supposed to be like, oh my gosh, I'm getting kissed. I'm so excited. Or this is weird. Or what do I do? My first thought was, oh, I'm suffocating. I can't breathe. And that's been like the story of my life is trying to figure out how to breathe. And holy moly, does that have a lot to do with anxiety and panic?
Yeah. Oh my goodness, yes. I was
Yeah.
gonna say for me, where I'm at is trying to remind myself to breathe. I've
Yes.
been in a space where I I'm so grateful and love my life and what I do and what I have. And at the same time, I also just notice that in the middle of the night, sometimes my heart rate gets really, really fast, or I get very like overwhelmed and frustrated. And it's difficult to communicate with other people. And then I totally like break down and am not productive. And then I get so mad at myself for not being productive. And I've been stuck in this cycle for a couple of months now, which is not always my norm. So my thing right now is trying to remember to take deep breaths when that's all happening so that I can kind of collect my thoughts and respond instead of react, which is hard to do.
Especially when it's so biologically based. It's not like it originates in your thoughts. It's perhaps not starting with uh, like automatic thoughts or negative thoughts or future tripping, where cognitive behavioral therapy, you go to a counselor, oftentimes they start with, well, let's talk about your thoughts. What triggered your emotions? What triggered your body? And so then targeting that thought or that thought process can be really helpful. You're describing that sometimes this kicks in the body. And so it's doing its thing long before your thoughts are even aware of what's happening. So it's hard to use those traditional interventions to get better. So it's like kind of spinning.
You just made me feel so seen because that's the thing. And I feel like a lot of times people's response to me, especially my parents, who I love and appreciate so much for wanting to be helpful, their way to solve it is, well, just think positive.
Yeah.
Like yesterday, I was really having a tough day, and my mom's like, well, don't let your thoughts get to you. And I'm like, I don't even think I have any negative thoughts today. I don't know why
Yeah.
I feel this way. Like, that
Yeah.
was not, it's like people don't understand, or it feels like people don't understand that it's not always
Yeah.
that I can kind of recognize and counter a thought to help.
Yeah.
It's just,
Yeah.
it's happening and I can't describe it sometimes.
You, I feel like, are honoring so many people with, like, we just got started in this conversation, and I feel like you just provided a space for so many people who feel so unseen and so unheard. Where when we tell someone to calm down, just think positive, distract yourself, is this rational? Is this not rational? In those moments, that could be very invalidating because the body is talking and the body is concerned about our safety, not our well being. And so then we find ourselves between a rock and a hard place with the traditional interventions and the way that people offer support. It doesn't work. And then we feel shame and we feel bad about ourselves. We feel misunderstood. So I love that within like the first 3 minutes of this conversation, you just got a bunch of people that were like turning their heads and they're like, oh my gosh, yeah, me too.
It's so, I want to say, like, silly to me sometimes that I feel so misunderstood in it because, like, why don't people understand it? I'm experiencing it. Why are other people not experiencing it the same way? And to know that other people out there are experiencing it the same way and are also being like invalidated or gaslighted into their own experience,
Yeah.
it's kind of reassuring to know, like, okay, it's not all in my head. I'm not like creating this and making this up the way people are making me feel.
Yeah. We're coming up against a healthcare system that's very siloed,
Yeah.
where in one silo we have the mental health practitioners, and they're really rooted in cognitive behavioral therapies. My master's was in counseling, and I did my thesis in cognitive behavioral therapy, which is top down. It's logicking your body into to being complicit. Like, how do I feel calm with my thoughts? And then a lot of that has started to shift, where in 2014 The Body Keeps the Score was published by Bessel van der Kolk, and he was introducing this concept of bottom up, where the body is regulating in many ways our logical brain. And then we get the introduction of the gut microbiome and how the gut influences the thoughts, the feelings, and the cravings that we have. But as we're having this conversation, you and I are recording this in 2026, we're just at the cusp of breaking those silos down into, instead of going to a counselor for top down and then going to my gastroenterologist if I have gas and bloating or irritable bowel syndrome, and then going to my neurologist if I have a headache. Now we're just at the cusp of how do all of these systems work together. So if I'm under stress or if I went through something difficult as a child, how might that influence the way my muscles feel in my body today, or how my gut receives food, or how I sleep? We're suddenly starting to ask more interesting questions, which I feel like you probably have been so ready for like decades. And you're a trailblazer in this conversation.
Thank you. As are you. And that's the thing. I was reading through your book and I loved how you talked about the bottom up because I just, it made a lot of it make sense. There's this one, you go through like 9 different types of anxiety and panic.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And there was one in, I want to say it was in anger, might have been in depressive. Those were my top two. But it was like,
Mm-hmm.
I want to cry. And even if I can't, like that, else that happens to me all the time. And people are like, oh, you're just dramatic, right? Or I'll get a really bad migraine and sometimes it's stress related. And people are like, oh, well, you're just doing it to yourself. I wish I could stop it. right? And I'm going to the neurologist and trying all these medications that are causing other side effects. And then I'm not feeling well. And then I'm going to different doctors. One's like, go get a sleep study for why you're not sleeping. It's like no one's really putting it together and hearing me in this comprehensive way. It's like, let's just test all these different like medications and tests and then see if we can treat all these symptoms separately that are causing other side effects. And I'm really not ending up feeling any better. I'm feeling confused on why my body's like reacting this way and I feel like I have no control.
Yeah. In the 1960s, we developed this theory in healthcare. It was called the chemical imbalance theory. And ever since then, they've run with that. The healthcare system has run with that, where the idea, the hypothesis is if we give people more serotonin, then some people feel less anxious, less depressed, and some people sleep better and they have less anger. And then maybe that therefore means the hypothesis was maybe that means more serotonin, more better, less serotonin, less good. Therefore, give everybody antidepressants. And then the pharmaceutical companies created a solution. They created Prozac. It took more than 20 trials for it to beat placebo. And they started, that was the mainstay. And so since the 60s, we have been relying on the chemical imbalance theory to largely understand why we feel the way we feel. And in 2022, there's this giant meta-analysis. So researchers looked at all of the publications, all of the data linking depression, anxiety, and serotonin, and they found that there was zero correlation. The hypothesis was wrong. And so suddenly the healthcare system's like, wait a second, more serotonin isn't more better and less serotonin isn't less good. Like that wasn't right. And the answer is we don't know why giving serotonin to some people helps them feel better and why it doesn't help other people feel better. But our hypothesis was wrong. And what I think is really exciting about that is now we get to ask more interesting questions. Is it's not just a chemical imbalance theory, and it's not just in your head up. It's not just serotonin. And we get to be what I would say kind of like our toddlers is, well, why? Okay, well, why? Why? We get to dig deeper. And so what you're describing is this desire for a healthcare system or support where people bring all of the data across those different silos, all of the information that your body is giving in your head, in your gut, in your muscles, in your sleep, in your mood, all of the things. And then we try to figure out why. Well, why that? Well, why that? How do we go deeper and deeper to get to the roots of the tree, as it were, and correct that so that the actual lived experience that you have, not just in your mood, but in your whole person, that your leaves are green and blossoming instead of this leaf and that leaf and this leaf and that leaf. Is that kind of like vibing with where your experience has been?
Yes, and I I'm so frustrated now because
Yeah.
I feel like again and again, it's like, well, try this antidepressant, try this one, try this medication for anxiety. And it's like, it's not helping, right? And they're like,
Mm-hmm.
well, one of them will. Let's just keep trying until we find the right one. And you're sitting here like, well, actually, this theory has now been disproven, right? This is not the only route to take. And if
Yeah.
it doesn't help you, that's a normal thing. I'm not medication resistant. I'm not difficult. It's oh, I'm so annoyed because I just last week I had
Yeah.
my neurologist, my psychiatrist, pharmacist, like getting everyone on the phone. And I was like,
Yeah.
the medication you guys are giving me, I am having these like severe breakdowns. They're not helping. I'm getting worse. Like there's some side effect or interaction with one of these. And they're like, well, what if we add? I'm like, no. Can we just take away one and see what happens?
Yeah.
It's like they don't always, I don't want to generalize like every doctor, but the doctors that I've had in my experience,
Mm-hmm.
feel like haven't really listened to me or explored, oh, maybe we can like dig deeper into what's happening instead of just prescribing right away and saying, oh, that one didn't work. Okay, let's try this one. Let's try this one.
Yeah, you desire someone to dig deeper, and I honor you as that there's nothing wrong with you. You're not broken. And I love that you notice that is that it's not that there's something wrong with me, I'm medication resistant. It's that your symptoms are unlikely due to the problems that these medications they're designed to solve. And some people, they do get better. Maybe they have a genetic mutation where they don't make enough serotonin. So a medication that regulates that may be helpful for them. Some antidepressants are pretty decent anti-inflammatories. And so maybe it's not the serotonin levels that they needed, but a little bit of anti-inflammation support, and that's what they needed, and the medication worked for them. So the question is, well, if this works for you, why? And let's use the medication to support you while we do the deeper work. And then also, if it isn't working for you, why and what will? And putting our heads together to do that, I think we'll get more interesting answers and diagnoses and things. But where you are right now in 2026 is not a lot of the healthcare system is slow. It doesn't, you have to kind of go outside of the insurance model. You have to kind of go outside of the existing algorithms to get different results. You go to the same type of practitioners, you're going to get the same types of results, unfortunately. But we could talk today about, well, what is a different way to go about it? How can you advocate for yourself? What are more interesting questions that you might be able to ask in like an actual concrete way? So I would love for us to be able to walk away from this conversation for those who, and like, girl, your story, I so resonate with that story, is like, yep, that's why I went to medical school. Yep. And medical school largely failed me too. And so then what do we do about that? And so we're going to walk away from this conversation with some like concrete examples. In the book also, you'll end the book. So if you are able, it's a slog to get through. It's a beast of a book. But as you get through the book, you will walk away with the panic proof protocol. And it talks exactly about what are the tests that you might ask your doctor to run? What are the supplements you might ask your doctor to use and why? What are we actually trying to accomplish? And what is the nutrition plan? What are the herbs? Like everything is there for the readers so that you can be that liaison for your health between all your different specialists.
Yeah, wait, I loved that in the book because I didn't know there were different types like probiotics and prebiotics. Like I didn't
Yeah.
realize there were different strands. I was like, why has no one ever talked to me about this?
Yeah.
And I did end up talking with two different doctors, like my primary and my neurologist,
Yeah.
about B vitamins, right? I was like, can
Yes.
we run my blood levels actually? And my iron was low. I needed to be on prescription iron. It was severely low. My vitamin B was low. My vitamin D was low. And I was like, I can't believe like we're not regularly like running and
Oh,
checking. And I actually got some prescription vitamins, just some regular vitamins, and it's made such a difference just in my energy levels and in my ability to focus. Like my brain doesn't feel so, I don't know how to describe it, but I felt like I couldn't. I'm someone who's very hyper productive. I can
yeah.
normally sit in front of a computer for 12 hours straight and work. Like I, without coming up for air, like I'm usually very hyper productive. I could not get my brain to focus for 30 minutes. I
Oh,
was just so exhausted and worn out. I wanted to take naps during the day, which is not like the norm for me. And it
yeah.
wasn't until like asked that I found out, like, hey, maybe there's something natural we can do instead of trying to add on to the mood stabilizer they already have me on.
Well, it's like you have a car and there's no gas in the car. You're like running on fumes. And they're like, well, let's just keep adding spark plugs or a bigger engine. But so for cisgender females that are actively bleeding, this is really important what you just pointed out. And I'm like so excited to jump on a soapbox about this for just a second. But if your doctor has not run an iron panel with ferritin, when in doubt, if you can take nothing else from this podcast, you get one thing from this podcast, is get your ferritin checked. That's your iron. Iron is needed to make red blood cells. Iron binds oxygen. So just imagine that to make a hemoglobin molecule, your hemoglobin molecule is a car with four seats. And outside of the four seats are arms, and those arms are made of iron, and the iron grabs the oxygen. So now you have four people in the car, and they're all grabbing onto oxygen, and then the car is driving that oxygen to your brain, and your brain's like, yay, oxygen, now I can work. And then it drives to your kidneys, and your kidneys are, yay, I love oxygen, now I can filter urine. And it goes to your adrenal glands, it goes to your muscles, it goes from head to toe. If there isn't enough iron reaching out to be available to grab oxygen, you're not going to grab oxygen. And this is called anemia. And so when it gets bad enough, it's anemia. But doctors don't always check until it's too late. And so your body will drop ferritin before you become fully anemic. But if our ferritin is 75 or lower, you're going to likely experience brain fog, fatigue. You're going to feel like you can't think. You're going to want to take a nap. You're going to get tired easily. Like you may have normally been able to climb 4 flights of stairs to your apartment, and now you're a little winded. You're going to feel depressed. You're going to feel anxious. You're going to have more abnormal periods. Iron, oh my gosh, I'm so glad you advocated for yourself, because when in doubt, get your iron over 75.
Feel like these aren't the things that I was taught to ask for, to even know that that was
Yeah.
something to ask for. Right?
Yeah.
Like your wellness check, they do, I think a CBC panel is what it's called. And I
Yeah, they'll do
always
like
include it.
they'll look for, so the body, it's like if you go to the Gap, right, the Gap store, and you go and they like have one t-shirt of every size, and so you're like, oh, there's one extra small, one medium, one large, one extra large, whatever. But the minute you, if their back stock is depleted, if they haven't gotten a shipment and they're out, and somebody buys that extra small, you have no extra small. At that moment, that's when the CBC will show an abnormality. Versus if you have enough on the floor and enough in the back stock, it's not going to show it up. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to replenish your back stock before your floor runs out, right? Does that analogy kind of make sense?
It does. And
Yeah.
I love the way you break things down.
Yeah.
So helpful
Good.
to understand because a lot of times people use, I would say, like a lot of really big words, and I get lost
Yes.
so easily.
Same. I need metaphors and analogies, sister.
Yeah. Okay, so what are some questions that we should be asking our doctors that maybe we don't even consider on the norm?
Yeah. Well, number one is ask your doctor to order a full comprehensive blood panel. And so that panel is in the book. So it's in writing for those who want it. I'll kind of spit it out here. And so if you're listening to this and you're on the go, you might just note the time and then you can like write it down. But you want a CBC, you want a CMP. So now we're looking at red blood cells. You're going to look at liver and kidneys and electrolytes. Those are very basic, and your insurance will cover that to be run every single year. You also want a cholesterol test, because if you're not eating enough fat, or if you're on a statin medication, or if you have an imbalance in your fats, maybe you're not getting enough essential fatty acids like from fish oil, and you're getting too many fats from, say, like red meat, right? That can affect your brain and your body. So you want to ask for a cholesterol test. You also want to ask for a vitamin D. So I really commend you, Fran, for asking for a vitamin D. And sometimes insurance won't cover that. And so if your doctor's like, no, we can't run that, you have the right as a patient to go and cash pay for that. And I don't have any affiliation with this company, but one that I use, and so if I have people in my family and they want to get it ordered and they just want to pay for it, is this called walkinlabs.com. And a vitamin D test just out of pocket, you can use your HSA, is like 25 bucks.
Okay.
Versus if your insurance, if you run it through your insurance and then they reject it, you might get a bill. This happened to my husband actually, and he got a bill of $250 for the insurance rate that was rejected on his vitamin D. And I was like, don't run that through your insurance, just cash pay. So you get a vitamin D, and you want your vitamin D to at least be 80. If your level on your test result is not 80, then talk to your doctor about if taking vitamin D is right for you. I would argue almost all of us would benefit from that because we live indoors and we wear long sleeves and we use sunscreen. We're probably all low. Ask your doctor for a full thyroid panel. And a full thyroid panel has four things in it. It's not just a TSH. A four thyroid panel is going to have TSH, free T3, free T4, and a reverse T3. And I don't want to use too much time getting into thyroid physiology. I teach about that in the book, but you need all of that. Otherwise, it's kind of like TSH comes from the brain. It's kind of like the mom asking the kids, go clean your room. It's the brain saying, hey, thyroid, release thyroid hormone. And if you only ask mom, hey, did you tell the kids to clean their room? And mom says, yes. The brain says, yes, I released the TSH. Assuming that the kids did the thing, we all know that's an act of futility. It's like 50-50 chance that the kids actually clean their room. So we have to go in and actually check the kids' rooms. We have to actually check to see what the thyroid did in response to that. That's the T3, T4 in reverse. And then you want to ask your doctor for an iron panel, which you also did, Fran, and I so respect you. Is some doctors will run a serum iron, but that's not a useful test. That's going to ebb and flow throughout the day. It's not a reliable marker. It's kind of like loose change in your pocket. You throw a coin here, you get a coin there. The best test is a ferritin, which is the stored iron we were just talking about with the Gap clothing analogy. And so at minimum, those are the tests that I would ask your doctor to run. And then when you get the results is you want to know the optimal reference ranges, which is kind of cool because a lot of labs, they'll get you that like color graph and it'll say like red, yellow, and green. And as long as it's not in the red, a lot of times doctors will be like, oh, you're fine. But really advocate for yourself to try to get yourself in the green or where you as a person feels better. So if you're like, iron is like 35 and technically that's normal, but you could get as high as 150, you might ask your doctor if supplementation might help a little bit. So that's the number one thing. And then the second thing is that I would ask them what your doctor thinks is underneath. Like what are you doing to help me find the root cause? If you're not equipped to help me find the root cause, who might you suggest that I can go and talk to that could do that with me? And if they don't know, then going to podcasts like yours, Fran, and other podcasts. I've talked on a lot of podcasts where people are creating education. The book is find someone who is willing to do that work with you and do the deeper digging. Why is my iron low? Well, maybe you're bleeding too much. Well, why are we bleeding too much? Well, maybe my estrogen is too high. Well, why is your estrogen too high? Well, maybe my gut microbiome, we have an excess of Clostridia and I'm reabsorbing my estrogen. Well, why do I have an imbalance in my gut microbiome? Oh, it could be because I took those antibiotics 3 years ago. Well, why did I take those antibiotics? Well, I keep getting colds and flus. Well, why am I getting colds and flus? Oh, because I eat a lot of sugar and cake and candies and my immune system is compromised. So I need to change my diet in order to help my mood, right? So someone who can help you work through all of that.
That was amazing.
Yeah, it's so fun.
Okay, so I never ask why. And one of my friends recently was like, I came back from the doctor. She's like, oh, so what happened? And I don't remember what exactly happened. She's like, oh, but why? And I was like, I don't know. Am I supposed to ask? Like, I
Yeah,
never think to ask. I'm like, oh, you're the doctor, you know. Like, okay, sounds good.
yeah,
Leaving. Like, let me out
yeah.
of here. And never think to ask why or, yeah, to go deeper. And I wonder how much I'm missing by not just asking deeper questions. I wouldn't have even thought, like, oh, I bleed too much. It could be my estrogen levels. I would have just assumed that, like, probably that's normal because my mom had a heavy menstrual cycle, right? So that would just be the norm for me. She never asked why, so why would I ask why and go deeper?
Yeah.
It's really interesting.
I know now I'm like, well, let's look at let's do a Dutch and look at your estrogens. Like, how are your estrogens being metabolized? Are you getting pro-inflammatory estrogens? Are you getting lots of, like, maybe you don't have enough progesterone? Your estrogen is fine, but you're not making progesterone. Progesterone holds the blood in the body. It decreases inflammation, certain kinds of progesterones, anti-anxiety. And then if so it's an inherited thing. So let's say, okay, well, my periods are out of balance. My mom's periods were out of balance. My grandmother's periods were out of balance. Is there a genetic component to it? Well, now yesterday, I just analyzed a colleague ran genetic testing on a patient. She did it's called 3x4 genetic test. It's a lab that maybe as you're a listener, your doctors might order for you. Is this patient had a mutation in a gene is called the MAOA gene. And this gene, it makes an enzyme, and the enzyme's job is to break down serotonin, dopamine, adrenaline, and then there's a COMT enzyme that she had a mutation on, which job is to break down serotonin, adrenaline, estrogens, dopamine, and that gene isn't working. So now she's getting traffic jams of all of these stress hormones, right? So the enzyme's not breaking it down and clearing it out. So she's got high estrogen risk factors genetically. She has high stress hormone risk factors genetically. And if we just look at well, you have high estrogen, I'm going to give you birth control, we're not looking at why you have high estrogen. And we can use natural remedies to help those genes work better. So now instead of just treating the symptoms, this patient has gone to see my colleague who's looking at genetics as perhaps a why. And then she's providing supports based on literal, actual biochemical science to make those genes work better so that the symptoms aren't happening to begin with. And so, like, as you're talking about, like, well, maybe I had low iron, maybe this could be my periods. I know my mom had this. As your friend said, well, why? So I would look at the way your body's metabolizing it. I would look at what your genes look like. What is your Dutch look like? Those are questions that I think would be wonderful if your doctor would help you ask. But if your doctor isn't equipped, then find someone who is and make sure that you're getting the answers you're worthy of. And the other thing I want to say, I know I'm like monologuing a lot here. You just got me so fired up, is prepare a list of questions to ask your doctor before you go in. I'm a doctor. I went to my sinus surgery doctor and I didn't write down questions. And so I thought of like 36 questions after the visit. And I was like, oh, you need to prepare ahead of time. And so write down questions like, what do you think? So, like headaches, right? What are your working diagnoses for why I have headaches? And then say, what are you doing in terms of root cause testing and exploration to rule that in or out? What can I do naturally to reduce my risk of headaches? What can I do with nutrition? What testing can I do? Like, ask those kinds of questions. Use Gemini or Perplexity or ChatGPT. Like, what kinds of questions might I ask my neurologist about my headaches? And just get inspiration and ideas so you can go in prepared.
I am going to have Chat GPT make me a list of questions, and I'm calling
Yeah.
all my doctors today and scheduling appointments. Like
Good. Advocate. Yes, girl.
I never think I get so scared to ask questions. I don't know why. And while I'm there, I feel like I can't think at all. I'm like, whatever you say sounds good. You're using
Yeah.
big words. I'm stressed. I want to get out of
Oh,
here.
totally. You probably like fawn, is my guess. Have you heard of fawning?
Yes, that was another thing in the book. Because this whole time I thought, because it's fight, flight, or freeze, or like the
Yeah.
main three that I've learned. And the whole time
Yeah.
I was like, oh, maybe I freeze. And then I was like, oh,
Yeah.
wait, it's actually called fawn. I
Yeah.
learned so much. This book, Panic Proof. I seriously learned so much.
That's awesome. Yeah, for those who are like, wait, hold on, hold on. Is it a deer? What is the fawn? So this is the way that we respond to stress. So we know, like you said, we know the fight, which is anger, anxiety. That's where we get that fight, which is the fire in our belly. That's how we advocate for ourselves. It's so important and powerful. There's the flight, which is like, I gotta run away. There's the freeze, which is like the deer in headlights. And then we have flop, which some people, when they get really stressed out, their blood pressure goes down, their blood sugar goes down, they feel like they're crashing, they have to lay down, they're depressed, they're weak, they're tired. And then there's a fracture, which some people just feel like they dissociate, or they feel torn, or they feel at war with themselves and they feel confused. And then there's fawn, which you and I were just talking about, which is that's my number one trauma response. I do some of all of them, but my number one trauma response is to fawn, which is where we try to appeal to the dominant authority. And so, like, if you grew up in a family where it felt like negative emotions weren't safe and you had to regulate the people that were around you, or you had to change your behavior to please them or to be safe, this is called fawning. And so when you go to the doctor, if you feel this sense like, I don't want to upset my doctor, inconvenience my doctor, maybe I even want to please my doctor or be a good patient, and so I'm going to change my behavior, that's called a fawn response. That's a trauma response. And so just noticing that and then figuring out how you can support yourself so that you can be a self advocate in those moments. And I think coming in, maybe even sending an email to their team ahead of time, like, hey, here are questions that I have ahead of time for our visit. And then coming in with a piece of paper and a pencil. And then that might be a good solution if your tendency is to kind of shut down and fawn.
Wait, that's so smart. Yeah, because I was always taught like asking questions was annoying, right? I'd get yelled at for asking too
Mm,
many questions.
yeah.
And then I would cry, and then I'd get yelled at for crying. So then I kind of learned just if someone wants you to like be quiet or just agreeable. Like that's what I'm gonna do because I don't want anyone to like get annoyed with me, like terrified of annoying people. So much so that I had like a good thing happen yesterday and I went to text one of my friends and I was like, well, I don't want to be annoying. So like I didn't text them and I was like, all I wanted to do was share this with someone. And I'm so terrified of annoying people. I won't ask any questions, whether it's like to my benefit or not. And it's
Yeah.
so interesting.
I have two thoughts about that. One is you are an ultimate badass for creating a safe and acceptable way to ask why. You created a podcast where like your entire mission here is to be curious and ask why. So you've like alchemized that need into something that's like, air quote for those who are listening, acceptable. Because growing up, that was annoying and it wasn't acceptable. But you have this need in you to learn more and ask questions. So you're already doing it. You have a part of yourself. She's like a total badass. She's like, I'm going to loopholes, right? And so mad props to you for that. And then the second thing is, I think doing some inner child work on that particular part could be really helpful. Where there's kind of two approaches that are coming to mind of how to work with that, where it doesn't have to be like thousands of hours of therapy, where you can start supporting that inner child or those parts that are driving some of our behaviors as adults that may be holding us back from really living the life that you want. Like, I I want you to celebrate your wins, and I want you to bring people into your life to be like, I just had a win, and for them to be like, hell yeah, queen, you had a win, as opposed to this child part that's like, oh, that's going to be annoying or upsetting or bothersome to people. So that child part, she's in the back seat of your car and you're driving, and she's being a backseat driver. She's telling you how to drive and how to behave. And maybe she's good at like, oh, mind the bicyclist. And you're like, oh, good, I didn't see the bicyclist. You helped me. But ultimately, like, we don't want the kids in the backseat bossing us around, right? So we need to support and meet the needs of those inner children, our younger selves, our parts, so that they're able to support us without hijacking us. So, what there's two things, and we could totally pass this up or we could dig into it more. But the first thing is a 3-minute hack where this is a really good exercise for people who aren't really very clear on the part that's influencing their present behavior. So to kind of like find that part and notice it. And then the second intervention I borrowed from havening, which is when you know who that part is, but they have very big feelings and it's kind of stressful to work with them, and you just need some sort of de-escalation to help calm them. So as I say that, do you have an impression of what might be most valuable for your listeners? And I can give you a demonstration.
Kind of like the part. where that might have like you recognize if it also have big emotions because
Mhm.
I've been recently reading about parts work a little bit and I'm so confused. I've like this big book that I've been trying to read and it's and I feel like a lot of us we think like something is our entire identity, right? And we're not able to separate out these pieces to really understand them, to create compassion for
Yeah,
them so that they don't take over anymore. So I think that might be the most helpful. It'll be
yeah.
very helpful for me at the minimum.
Oh,
Going
girl,
selfish
same.
route.
I love that because honestly, all of this stuff is a lot of the people that you hear out there that are teaching and advocating and doing this kind of work. We needed this. And it was so helpful for us that we're like, I have to tell everybody about it. So, like, I love that you're advocating for your own needs because other people out there need it too. And so, what I think would be helpful is to teach your listeners to teach you how to do amygdala de-amplification or havening. And I want to honor that we stand on the shoulders of giants. So I did not invent this, but I want to spread the word on it. And if you want to learn more about it, you can look up Havening, Havening, and get more information. So we're going to do that today. So what I want to have you do is pick maybe a fawning moment where you felt like perhaps you wanted to stick up for yourself, but you didn't. Like there was this something that held you back. Maybe for today's intents and purposes, don't pick like a huge, giant, traumatizing existential moment, but like maybe a little moment, like texting your friend, maybe, or not texting your friend you wanted to and didn't. And you're going to notice that. And there's going to be a two-step process. The first step is we're going to notice the yuck and we'll notice it for like 10 to 30 seconds. And then the second step is we are going to do the havening part. That's the touch part. And so for those who are listening, the first one is you're going to imagine dusting off your hands. And so I'm gesturing in the video where I just rub my palms together like I'm just wiping my palms off. Or you might try dusting off your shoulders, where you take each palm, do the butterfly hug, just wipe your hands down your shoulders and your arms. The third way that we could do it is, if it feels more soothing, is to touch down your face. So your fingers start at your forehead, down your cheeks, down your chin, and you just kind of stroke your face. I don't love that one because I have bangs and then my bangs get all goofy. So we're going to just fix them right here. Oh, yeah, that's better. We're going to do the hand. So, two parts, noticing the yuck, and the second part is the touch part. And I will walk you through it. I like to do it with my eyes closed. So, if you want to close them, you can. If you want to open them, that's totally fine. If you're driving, don't do this, just listen. And so, where we're going to start, Fran, is we're going to notice a moment, a very specific moment. We're going to notice the yuck, and I'm going to talk you through it. So, just notice it. You might notice where that yuck is in your body. Like, oh gosh, I feel it in my head and my thoughts and my tummy and my muscles, or nowhere or everywhere. Just notice it. We're going to notice it for about 10 more seconds. You don't have to change it. You're just going to notice that specific moment, that yuck. And we're going to notice it for about 3 more seconds, just acknowledging it. I'm just holding space for it. And then we're going to take a nice breath and we're going to go to part two. So let's take a breath in and exhale. And then we're going to start the touch part, the havening part. So I'm going to just do my hands. It's easier for me. And so you're going to hold and repeat this gesture until I tell you to stop. So shoulders, the hands, or the face, you're just going to keep doing this. And Fran, since we're doing this exercise together, I'm going to ask you a couple of questions and we're going to logicify your brain. So can you say your ABCs out loud for me?
A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P, Q, R, S, T, U, V, W, X, Y, and Z.
Amazing. And can you spell your first and last name backwards? It's
Oh
a
no.
harder one.
Um, my last name R E T Recier. First name Acessenarf.
Oh my goodness, you did so good. And what is 2 plus 2?
4,
What's 4 plus 2?
6,
What's 6 plus 2?
8,
What's 8 plus 2?
10,
And what's 10 plus 2?
12.
Okay. And if you could pick your favorite 3 foods to eat without any health consequences, what would those 3 foods be?
Ooh, chocolate chip cookie cake. Um, Pasta like a bolognese
Uh-huh.
and buffalo cauliflower.
Oh, those are so yummy. Okay, so now we're going to take our hands and we're going to gently rest them in our lap. And we're going to go back to part 1. And I want you to notice the yuck, but notice what might be a little different about it. Maybe the image changed. Maybe the sensation changed. Maybe the vantage point changed. You just notice it. We're going to notice it for about 15 more seconds, just acknowledging, just honoring, paying attention to what it is, what it isn't. About 3 more seconds. And then we're going to take a nice breath in and a nice breath out. And then normally what we would do next is we would go back to the havening, the touch part, and we would do other math exercises. I might have you count backwards from 40 to 0 by twos. I might have you list all of your favorite sports teams. I might have you list all of the birds that you can think of. And in this exercise, we will go back and forth doing that. And so since today is just a demonstration and I want to honor your time and your listeners' time, we're going to take one more breath and we'll come back to the present and kind of reflect on that. So one last breath together. And then we'll exhale. And then we can open our eyes together.
That was so cool.
What did you notice? It's so different for everybody. I'm curious what your just a one round. What did you notice?
My jaw felt less tight.
Mm.
Yeah, I didn't even realize like I was carrying anything but I guess I clench my teeth a lot when I like bite my tongue. So I feel it like
Oh
in my
yeah.
jaw and all of a sudden like my teeth aren't um
As clenched.
when they like rub against each other, I forget what that's called, but then that causes TMJ.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're grinding bruxism.
That's the word, grinding my teeth.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I love that. So in one set, well, first of all, how amazing is that you're like literally clenching your jaw to hold yourself back from speaking your truth? And how amazing is it that I think that demonstration was probably like less than 3 minutes. And anything that changes is changeable. So imagine if you were to set aside 5 minutes a day to just practice this exercise, how you can let the pressure out in little bits and pieces. And then the way that I would even end this session is if you and I were to do a full session, let's say we spend as long as we need. It could be 30 minutes, depending on how big it is. It could be literally 5 minutes if it's a little guy. And then ending with what you desire. So you might say, I am safe, or I can speak my truth. And so then after you've gone back and forth and you feel like, oh, my body feels relaxed, I'm feeling kind of happy, then you replace it with what you want. And so not only are you activating the amygdala, this big feeling, emotional processing part of the brain that doesn't have much logic to it. Talk therapy doesn't often help with the amygdala's automatic responses. Not only are you activating that amygdala, you're activating the unconscious physical bodily reactions to that stressor, like you and I were talking about in the beginning. But what's so cool about this is that when you then alternate to the touch and the math, is you're literally creating a synaptic connection from that physical and emotional activation to your logical brain, so that then the cognitive behavioral techniques you want to use will actually work. I am safe. I can speak my truth. I am confident. I am worthy. Because otherwise, if we just try to start with top down, many people feel very disenfranchised. It doesn't work very well. But if we start with noticing the yuck and alternating it with the math or the ABCs or the logical exercises, then we bridge the gap and you see true results. So practice that every day. I'm curious. I want you to email me in like a week and tell me what you notice.
I will. Wait, that makes so much sense because I'm always like, one of my friends is like, just say I am safe over and over again. And I'm like, it doesn't work. Like for me, that does not make me like, does not
Yeah.
calm down my heart rate when I am feeling really, really anxious. And I was like, why doesn't it work? If it's working for other people, maybe
Yeah.
try bottom up.
Yeah. I do this on the plane. I used to be like terrified of flying. And so I would notice it and I'd be like, okay, my heart is pounding. This is kind of a yucky feeling. It's really a yucky feeling. And so then I would notice it and then I would do the distraction. I would do like, I made a list ahead of time, like count from 40 to 0, say my ABCs, like 2 plus, like easy stuff, like who are all the Disney princesses, like whatever. And then I would go back and notice, like, oh, my heart is still pounding because I'm still on the plane and I still ate it, but it's less. And then keep doing that exercise. You could do it in real time. Or after I get off the plane and I'm in my hotel, wherever I traveled to, I could remember that and do the reprogramming afterwards. So it gives us so much freedom to actually start changing the way that our body is responding to stress.
Wow. Okay, you have provided so much useful, like actual tangible takeaways today. Thank you so much. As we are wrapping up, what's one last thing you'd like to leave our audience with?
Your symptoms are here to communicate to you about what needs healing and how. And so start to practice just noticing your body, noticing your symptoms with love and respect. Because once you have more of a clear relationship with them, then you can collaborate with them to ask why so that you can get to the root cause and you can actually truly heal.
You are so amazing. How can people connect with you, learn more about you, purchase your book?
Yes, my book is sold anywhere books are sold. It's called Panic Proof. I'm Dr. Nicole Cain. I love hanging out on Instagram. I answer questions on there, so find me at Dr. Nicole Cain. And if you love the book, it would be amazing if you could leave a few words of encouragement that helps the publisher promote the book to get the word out.
Thank you so much for listening to Normalize the Conversation. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review. This podcast is an initiative of Inspiring My Generation, focusing on normalizing the conversation, bringing education and awareness to the forefront, and amplifying global voices to spark change and hope. Inspiring My Generation is a 501c3 nonprofit organization on a mission towards suicide prevention through awareness, conversation, education, and support. Connect with us on Instagram at Inspiring My Generation and visit our website inspiringmygeneration.org to learn more about our work and how you can make a difference.